Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Wednesday emission of Open Space. Today we are in the Conscious School, emission space. Conscious School space. Yeah, I'm thinking how to call it. And I'm here. My name is Iris. I'm here with Alessia.
Good morning, everybody.
Thank you,
Welcome
Alessia, for joining me.
Thank you, Iris.
I'm very happy to have you here. In these workshops that we do here with Conscious School mentors, the people that appear here, for example, me and Alessia, we are in the past to learning how to guide a full Conscious School retreat, which would be a 4-day retreat that maybe you've heard about or maybe not, and maybe at some point we can send you some information about that. But here it's about developing a topic and exposing ourselves and learning with you how to present things in the Conscious School way.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm very happy to have Alessia here with me as a special guest. Thank you very much. Maybe you can tell a bit about yourself, why you're here in Madrid and what's happening next.
What's happening next? It's very rare that we know what's happening next. I'm here because I wanted to join you in the main headquarters of our organization, this great epicenter here with the other mentors. Due to the lockdown, I was stuck in Italy for the past almost 3 months. And of course, we were always in connection thanks to the online emissions, thanks to evening Alberto on air emissions. At the same time, I felt that I really wanted to stay in presence with you and to work together for organizational meetings and also to develop together the Conscious School subjects and the Conscious School workshops. And also I'm here because on Monday we will have a live workshops about leadership and mentoring. We can talk about it later in case it's possible I could join it also online as you can, but considering that I was coming here, I said, okay, I will remain until the leadership and mentoring workshop with Alberto Varela.
Beautiful. For me, being here in Madrid is has been very intense the last weeks. But we could talk about that also for hours and hours. But today the topic is failure. And we have already talked about failure now the last 2 days and the other emissions and the other languages.
Yeah.
And
yesterday morning, for example, in Italian, so I was there too, and yesterday evening in Spanish. It's like a way for us to go deeper in the topic, also from the different languages, because maybe also in different cultures, it can be that we experience it in a variety of approaches.
Yeah, that is true, and it's also depending on who's there. The topics that come up, the ideas that come up are very different, and so this workshop now is not going to be a translation of the other workshops. We might talk about similar things, but I'm sure we go in a very different way in the end.
Also thanks to the interaction, because everybody who is watching us can participate. You're invited to participate with any comment and with any questions that you may have as an input of interaction. Of course, Iris and I, we don't have answers. We discuss, we observe inside of us what any question or any comment make us emerge in related to this topic.
And as a starting point there, I would like to invite everyone who's watching to observe, and I would also like Alessia to observe, what is the last thing that happened in your life where you perceived that what happened was a failure? And it could be a failure that occurred in your life and something you was doing, or maybe a failure that you observed in somebody else. And if you want to share, you're invited. Beautiful. But maybe now first we could share if you have something, Alessia, that you observed, and then we can see different ways to look at this failure from different angles.
Yeah, first of all, when I think in general about failure, I can see quite an objective concept and a personal one. For example, I'm playing a basketball match, and I don't get the, how do you say, when you throw the ball to the basket? Yeah. So you can either, the ball can either enter or not. So this is quite objective, that I can consider that if the ball doesn't enter, okay, it's a failure, I failed. But this event can create in myself a feeling of failure or not. So I could consider just an event, okay, this time I didn't succeed, but it's just a training for myself. Or I can start to feel the feeling of failure. And I think that when we make this distinction, we are already seeing how the failure can be an internal reality. About myself, I can see that many times I tend to attack myself when I don't do something as perfect as I would like it to be. So this is maybe my approach to failure. I can see, I've been seeing in these months and in these years, especially working inside the organization, I can see my tendency to focus a lot on my imperfections. And now, likely, I'm aware of it. So I also make fun of myself. And also my colleagues and friends make fun of me when I do something. Then I say, oh, maybe it should have done like that. And they say, oh, so it's not perfect, right? So when they say this, I laugh and everything fade away, and I can enjoy what I did.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful reference. I resonate a lot with that, Alessia, because I have this morning I was just talking with Hernan about how something that how I see like all these different things in my life right now that are not perfect, and I punish myself for it, like this, especially right now that I took on another responsibility, and I realized that all the other things that I'm also doing, I can't do them all perfect, and then I start to be like, oh, but this is not good, and this is like when I get into the feeling of failure, and this is exactly that, like it's an internal reality. It can have something to do with the outside, but it doesn't have to do something with the outside. And I can imagine that tonight in the workshop about the original trauma, that we will also go a bit more deeper there in where might this come from, because this is something that is being imprinted in our childhood. Yeah. But this is nothing that we have to talk about now. But if somebody wants to look at that tonight, there's a possibility to go deeper there with Laura Torabadeja.
At 8 p.m., I guess.
At 8 p.m., yes. And before there will be a conference. But yeah, so this idea about the not feeling perfect, to me somehow, I started to think about how, in this case, in the moment that through my perception, I define something as a failure, right? And so in that way, do you think I could say that my perception somehow encages me in that reality? I'm trying to make this connection to freedom. And so this the idea that in a way, if I have this perception of this is not good, this is not good, I can focus on that. I can put myself into that reality, or I can start to look at something that happens as something that just happens as a fact, and from that place open the possibility also to learn, because as you said, I could, the way with a basketball, I can just use that experience as a way to learn. Maybe I have to throw in a different way. And this is a very beautiful example because it's very simple. And this can apply to everything, in every perception of failure in life.
Yeah, for sure. And another aspect of life that can affect me a lot, for example, are the relationships, especially relationships with people you care a lot. So it can be family, friends, or love. And also in that case, we can consider a problem in the relationship as the worst thing that could happen to you, or a moment to stop and see the message that is arriving. Like to say, okay, if this way of being in this relationship doesn't work, either because there was the end of the relationship, either because there are conflicts, continuous conflicts, I can interpret it as failure, and I underline it, interpret it, because it's my interpretation of the situation. Or I can stop and observe, okay, what is the way we are in relation until this moment? How am I contributing? How is the other contributing? So what is not working, and what, in case I could change, to make me more feeling more fulfilled, and also maybe the others. So in this case, I can focus on, especially on my contribution in the situation, because the common view, the tendency, very common tendency is to give the responsibility always to the external. So, because he did this, he did that. Okay, now that I breathe, how am I contributing to this?
That is a very, I love the way you presented this, because it opens a space to really see the way I'm creating my reality in a way, and I'm looking at the other, and in this way we can, many of us, me including, we are recreating this experience of failure all over and over again, being in this loop of seeing something, having the interpretation of the situation that the failure also has to do with the other. So maybe I'm trying to control the situation so that the failure doesn't occur. And if you feel like I would, maybe we can try to develop this triangle with the failure, and I'm gonna sure. Write it, and then we can see, and can see if Giovanni can make it visible also.
We use the triangle in our emissions as a tool of comprehension. So it's like a structure in which we put nuclear words on the angles of this triangle. At the center, usually we put the main word that is the base of these meanings that we are exploring, and usually the triangle with the how can I say, the point going towards the bottom is something that is linked to our conditioning, to our limited mental, our limited part, our conditioned part. While when we use a triangle with the upper point going towards the upper part, it's considered a triangle that helps us to transcend our conditioned mind.
Thank you. And this triangle for the failure, I actually put, as you said, in the lowest point, I put the word limitation. Because for me, and let's see if we agree on this point, the idea of failure would come from the idea that something is wrong, and that would be this idea would limit me in seeing the experience for what it actually is. It's just an experience.
So it's like if my view on this experience is limited and I don't have an integral view of the experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I put on the upper right hand side, I put negation. If I don't see a situation for what it is, denial. Yeah, maybe denials. Actually, denial is probably the word. This would be like to not perceive a situation as a failure. I might deny it to be happening. For example, this is something that happens a lot in relationships, actually. To not feel like a relationship has failed, we may stay with somebody even though we're not happy, and deny that it actually is not going well.
Yeah, we go deeper. What we do with the words when we use the triangle of comprehension is that we go deeper in the meaning of the word, the meaning that it has for each one of us. Can be a common meaning, but also a personal meaning. So it's very interesting. Thank you, Iris. Control, limitation, denial, and at the center failure.
And so this would mean that in the perception of failure would also lead me to want to control a situation so that failure would not occur. So the way that I now just put the words like this, also based on what we talked about yesterday, would be that all of these 3 points would have to do with the perception of the failure and with some sort of intent to avoid it in a way. So then there would be like, I'm trying to control the situation so that the failure doesn't occur, or I'm denying the situation to not feel the failure. And now I don't find a good way to talk about the limitation. Which other word we could put there, Alessia?
Well, on the one hand, it's linked to what we said before. If I am in this spiral, I limit my perception and I limit my observation. So I resonate with this word limitation, because when I control, of course, I don't feel an experience of openness. So maybe of closeness, and when I'm closed, I limit my opportunities. I limit the infinite potential of myself, of my relationship. So I can see this. Also with limitation, I could see conditioned. Everything
I like
is.
that. I'm gonna put that.
Yeah.
Conditioning.
And of course, when I say conditioning, I mean false conditioning.
A false conditioning?
Yeah, I mean something that I believe maybe about myself or about other people or about how life works, that is inside myself, inside my mind, due to past experiences mainly, or due to childhood traumas, and all all this together I created due to this in my mind, this limiting belief. Yeah.
So it would be the limiting belief and then the I. So then all of what makes up my identification of who I am would be creating this limitation, creating these limiting beliefs.
Yeah. And it's like all this triangle, what arrives to me is the word lie. Yeah. Because when I am identified with this lower point, I'm completely identified with the lie, with the false ideas that I have about myself. For example, I must protect myself from something, I must control the situation, otherwise I will fail. It's a lie. But unfortunately, I am identified with it.
Yeah, exactly. In that moment, it becomes the reality because you are identified with it. Yeah, or I am identified with it in that sense. Yeah.
We can say the lie of the eye.
The lie of the eye. Yeah. So now being in the limitation, how about we go to the potential?
Yes, of course.
So how would that look like? Maybe I can. What does a triangle, upwards pointing triangle mean, Alessia?
So in general, we mean we create this other triangle with the upper point going toward the up to explore some words to transcend the other triangle. So we want to explore the potential of each one of us, the potential of the essence of the human being. So something that can facilitate our flourishment.
Yeah.
And if before we were talking about the lie, now we want to travel towards the truth.
Yes, exactly. Travel towards the truth is a very beautiful way of saying it. That's one of the things that I love most about the fact that we work so much with people from different languages, because we bring expressions from other languages to the, for example, now to English. Travel to the truth. I think it's beautiful. So how do we start? How about looking at control? What would be the opposite of control? Well, this is what I how I comprehended how we normally work with these triangles would be then to see what would be the transcended way of being, in this case, of control. And the first thing that comes to me would be letting go.
Yeah, it could be to let go. At the same time, it could be support, which is something that we were exploring before when we. Yeah, it could be support. Especially, it's easier maybe to see this step from control to letting go and support if we consider the relationship with another person, but it can be the same with me. So in a relationship, for example, I can control the other, or I want to support him, her, in her expression, in his or her freedom, and they are two opposites. Yeah. At the same time, I can do it with myself. I control, or I am self-demanding, or on the contrary, I am supporting myself. So this means to love myself and accept myself any moment, whatever happens, whatever I do, because I don't have this need to evaluate everything that I do according to an expected result.
I like that you said self-demand. I control myself and I'm in self-demand. I'm putting it on the same corner. And the self-demand is the same energy as control in a way, no?
Yeah, because what arrives to me is that it's like I have unexpected results that I would like from myself with self-demand, or from the other, so I want to control. And of course, these expected results, I establish them according to some standard that I have in my mind. Maybe some standard coming from the society, and also in this case, I could say it's not. I didn't decide this standard. It's my family that gave them. It's the society, but I become more free and conscious when I realize that I have this big opportunity. I can decide to follow those standards or not, and this is really a decision, a realization that can change your life.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I put down expectation, but it would be, which would be the expectation that the other can have, or it can be just your own expectation, which leads you again to self-demand, in a way. So when we go to the point on the right-hand upper side, negation, denial. What would be the contrary of denying a situation?
A word that comes to me could be accept, and even if denial.
To me comes accept, and also in a way, if I see that if I allow myself to see that something isn't going the way I wanted it to go, like if I see the failure, I can take responsibility, I can take charge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can either deny something happening to me, or I can take charge, take the responsibility. Because when I take the responsibility, I don't have this need to deny anymore something happening, and it's a huge liberation.
So actually, in that case, then maybe together with the negation and denial, we could add guilt. Because I can only take responsibility if I don't feel guilty for what's happening.
Yeah. Guilt near the denial, and I feel also the energy of fear near control. Because maybe if I fear that something could happen that I don't want, so I start this control.
So from that point of view, if we have fear and control in our potential, in the triangle of potential, we would have also trust.
For sure.
So we have acceptation, responsibility, letting go, or support and trust. And so then if we go for the the upper pointing corner, limitation, conditioning, limiting belief, the I. What word comes to you for the upper point? The vortex. Is it the vortex?
Well, yeah. One word that comes to me is pure view. Like if I'm not conditioned by my limiting belief, I can have a pure view. At the same time, comes being instead of the other triangle, the red one. It gives me a lot of the energy of do. I must do this and have this result, while the opposite triangle in which we are transcending, I feel it related to being and potential.
Doing and what else you said?
Yeah.
So you said potential. You also said pure view, which would be purity.
Purity, yeah. And as opposed to the limiting belief, also our consciousness, living life from being connected to our consciousness. Because when we are in the limiting belief and when we are guided by our conditioned mind, we are in a state in which we forgot our real nature. It's not that we lost our real nature or our consciousness, because it's impossible to lose it, but we are disconnected from our real essence and from our consciousness.
Yeah. I feel like we could continue to write words like connection, disconnection. Yeah, totally.
And at the center, the opposite of failure. So it's like we are creating a triangle that could be guided by freedom, for example. Yeah.
Freedom.
We are proposing quite an innovative approach to failure, because usually we always consider it as the contrary of success. And we want to approach it in a different way.
Yeah, in a way, the first thing would be success, but success is from how I see it the same charge as failure, in a sense that it's the definition of something that I expected, or an expectation that's been put on me,
like linked to a result.
Linked to result, exactly. Which doesn't mean that once you free yourself from all the limitation, all the guilt, all the control, that you won't have success also in the conventional way. And I don't know if you have seen already the house of Alberto, for example. You should go before you leave. You should have a look at it, because it is true, once you transcend all these limiting beliefs, that you do have success. You do also connect to values that are conventionally seen as success, but in the sense of the conscious way of looking of all of this. I agree, it would be freedom to not be in the limitation, to not be in the control, and to not be in the guilt or denial.
It's like saying you are guided by freedom because you're connected, you're reconnected with your essence, which is freedom. And then if you are guided by freedom in life, you live success. But it's not that success is your objective. It's like saying, I just want to be connected with myself. I want to stay in connection with my essence. While if I'm guided in life by failure and all this conditioning, what I obtain, yes, it's the contrary.
So then, I'm not sure if we have any questions, but if I would be listening, and we do have questions, so maybe then we answer those questions first before I have my questions to you, Alessia.
Yes.
So we have Christine. She says, but when I say I believe it in a conditioning, so I believe it in a lie, isn't that me committing failure to live or believe in the truth? And also,
Can you repeat that?
I didn't understand. She says, but when I say I believe it in a conditioning, so
Believe in a conditioning.
in a conditioning, so I believe it in a lie. Isn't that me committing failure to live or believe in the truth?
Yeah, we understand the first part, but not the second part. So I don't know if Christian, you said, Christine. If Christine, you want to add something, it would be very useful.
Yes, and also Andrea. She says, interesting question and topic. I consider work as the main failure in my life or my lack of ability to make money to be fully independent. And this is I have been struggling with all my adult life. Yes.
Thank you for sharing, Andrea.
Yeah, thank you, Christine and Andrea.
Yeah. This is something that I can imagine that we can go a bit deeper tonight when we talk about the original wounding, because especially the definition of success and failure is something that comes from very early childhood conditioning, Andrea. So then the idea that, well, it would maybe be the result of the idea that you have absorbed from your parents about what it would mean to be successful or what it would mean to be a failure, and also what you have learned about your ability to fulfill these expectations. And oftentimes it's there where we can look at, and maybe this is something, if you want, Andrea, to reflect on. What is the first memory that you have about getting a feedback of your parents for something you have done? Because oftentimes the key is there, that there's an idea that you have implemented or that you have been implemented about your ability to be successful. But yeah, if you have a question about that, you can also write to us later if you want.
Yeah, also sometimes when we have overprotective families or parents, of course they do it with their best intention. At the same time, when my parents do everything for me, they give me everything, and I only have this perception that I need to work also to be autonomous. When I start, let's say, not very early, I can, or anyway, even if it's not related to work, when my parents do everything for me, like even at home, no, you don't need to do it, you are a child, I do it for you. There are some shadows, of course, of this. We have got also the cat here. One of these shadows could be that the child perceive, okay, so you are doing everything for me because I'm not able to do it. I cannot learn to do it. So there are many views, many roads that we could see. And another one, as we said before, is the one of perfection. So as I did it myself, I explored a lot my idea of perfection. So I also invite you, Andrea, and if you want, you can also write again in the comment if you see that it could be also your idea of perfection that is influencing this state. What I mean is, do you feel that you are able to do the works that you would like to, or maybe you don't propose yourself to some activities because you feel that you are not able, that you could not learn? And I speak about myself because I saw this dynamic inside myself for years until I reached my idea of perfection, of being able to do something. I was never active in proposing myself for something. And then I realized that in many occasions, you will never feel ready to do something. Just do it, and then you learn on the way.
Yeah. There's also, if we wanted, we could also look at it from from the point of view of this triangle of the failure, by thinking, so what is it that is present in my process of failing? So is it that I'm trying to control situations so that I'm not going to fail? Do I feel guilty if something doesn't work out? Or if I have this constant idea that I have to do something and I can't just be in the place where I am? And all of these things could maybe support you in seeing the underlying mechanism that do make you fail, in a sense, because the failure is a perception, but it's also a reality in a sense. And we go back there to this idea of not being able to sustain a project because we keep ourselves in this reality, and in this way it is a reality. It is our reality while we're living it.
And another word I would put is what I feel that I deserve.
Yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
because it's deeply related with success and with failure, and also to freedom. Do I feel that I deserve freedom? Or do I feel that I deserve to be controlled? Do I feel that I deserve to feel fulfilled? I deserve to flourish? I deserve love or not? Yeah, I feel that when I keep living in my sensation of failure, a part of myself maybe feels that I deserve this failure. It's like saying I can live as much happiness and love as I feel that or that I think also that I deserve.
Thank you very much, Alessia, for that, because it's what's been missing today. I think it's exactly the point of all of this, is that we're recreating what we believe to be our reality. We're recreating the belief that we have implemented in ourselves from early on. We're recreating it, confirming the belief that I have that I'm a failure, the belief that I have that I don't deserve love, that I don't deserve success, I don't deserve to have a lot of money. All of these beliefs that we have at some point implemented, we are recreating our reality in a way that we can confirm this belief. So it's always going to be like, oh yeah, but it's always been like this. Like any time I started a project, I failed, and so how could I ever get out of there? And that's the question that we've also moved at some point with Roberto, where we talked about what do we do, like from the knowledge of I don't know how it feels to be successful. It is really complicated to be successful if you don't know how that feeling would be like. And that has a lot to do with the idea that I have about myself. And if I'm willing to let go of the idea that I have about myself, can I allow myself to be free in that sense, in letting go of what I believe to be, like letting go of everything I know to be true, and it's not easy, but it's possible.
And it's the same with freedom. Can I be free if I don't have any idea of how it feels to be free? Can I imagine myself feeling free? Or when I imagine this, I feel guilty, I feel that I don't deserve it, I feel that I'm free in an area of my life, I could damage other people. So maybe, yeah, thank you, Aris, because I think it could be also a very practical exercise, test that I can do for myself. Can I imagine myself free, or what gets activated if I imagine it? Do I really feel that I deserve it?
And for me, it's really small things. Like, for example, in the last days and weeks, I realize how much I still have ideas implemented that are now coming up more and more and more. Ideas that come from my mother. It's like this morning I thought, so what am I gonna put on? Like, what I'm gonna wear? And then I spent some time thinking about where this idea comes from. Because, like, first of all, why does it matter? What message do I want to transmit? Like, I put on a shirt and it was like kind of open until here, and then Hernan said, "Oh yeah, that's beautiful." I said, "Yeah, but I'm gonna be on TV, you know. I can't be on TV like this." And it's like all these ideas, like seeing where do these ideas come from. It's like this observation in day-to-day life, like every single thing that we do. Where does it come from? Like, why do I believe that I have to look pretty or serious or proper, or like, what, you know, where do I get this belief from? And it's some days it's funny, some days it's frustrating, but it's really it's really the only way I know to start freeing ourselves from it is to first we have to see the prison that we're in. If I don't know what's limiting me, how am I going to free myself? Did we have any responses from Christine or Andrea or anyone else?
Andrea says, "Thank you, Iris, Alessia, and Ciro. Alessia, you really hit the mark. Overprotective parents, they did everything. And then, as an adult, I had no idea how to do anything. And yes, I am also a perfectionist. I am still thinking about Iris' question now." And then she says, "Yes, I do feel like I don't deserve good things or money. If I don't suffer somehow, or if I don't do more or do things better." Yeah. Thank you. I had no idea that belief is still in here. Yes. And Iogan says, "Guilt worship limits me from feeling like I deserve anything. I must suffer for my happiness."
Is that guilt?
Yeah. Sorry, Owen.
Thank you, Owen. Owen is one of the... I think he might be the only one who's always there. Thank you, Owen, so much for being with us every single time. It's nice to know that you're there.
And thank you very much for sharing. Also, again, Andrea, for sharing and for observing yourself in this interaction. And thank you for participating.
Guilt, I'm not sure if Owen really said addiction or if it's something that comes up to me. He said worship, I think, no? It's even a step further, I think. For me, that is something that I realized at some point that there's a tendency that I have to want to feel guilty for anything in a way. Like, for me, that was a long time I was, and that's why it's beautiful that it's opposite of responsibility. Like, for me, taking responsibility for something was complicated because I easily feel guilty if it's not going the way I want from the perfectionist point of view. And so I realized at some point that I was addicted to feeling guilty, and I don't know if I believe it's not there anymore, but I don't know. It's like sometimes I still feel guilty for things, but it's like the addiction or worship is for me a nice way to realize that how addicted we are to our identity. And that's for me for us the way we oftentimes present is like the biggest addiction of humankind is the addiction to who we believe to be. And it is an addiction. It is something that is difficult to let go of, to stop doing in a way.
And also I want to add to Andrea, considering that you shared this personal experience with us, that as you can see that maybe in your case this situation was created also due to these overprotecting parents, as we always say that we're doing the best of themselves, so this is not interesting for us. We are focusing on us. So okay, now considering everything that we shared, considering this attitude to transcend, it would be interesting for you to think, to observe what you can receive from this interaction. For example, this morning, do you still believe that you are not able to be autonomous, or what do you really feel that you deserve? And this is, of course, an open question for you and for everybody who is watching. And whenever you come back to another emission, if you want to share, we will be very happy.
Well, thank you, Alessia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for watching either live or maybe later on. Every Wednesday and Sunday morning, and from now on it will be from 11 to 12. We will share live online in this YouTube channel in English, and then every Wednesday at the evening from now on it will be at 8 o'clock. There will be the emission. It's paid. I don't have the prices present right now, but there's a small contribution to be paid. And from 7 to 8, there's always a conference, which means that there's going to be people sitting here on the red sofa and sharing a little bit about what we do, what are the events that we offer, and there's also going to be the opportunity to ask questions. Thank you all for being there. Hope to see you soon, and have a beautiful rest of the week. Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.
Metteli apon akut, alin vale apon ayen. Las moquetin alle place, ish madame lote kay maye. Alin gade du bandeye, I vole wobla maye. Alin vole, alin piye, woze, alin vole wobla maye, woze, alin piye, alin vole. Alin vole wobla maye, alin vole, alin piye. Alin vole wabla maye, oze alin piye, alin vole wabla maye. Yo cherche wabla